So once again, we are starting a show with Netflix.
Yeah. They're trying to kill us.
Yeah.
They're trying to take out the movie industry. No kidding. They're not in the movie industry. Netflix is not in the movie industry, folks.
But it's interesting. We're gonna let's get into it a little bit here because it's really interesting. You know, they added, how many was it?
7 million.
7 million new subscribers, which is unhinged.
That's as many subscribers as Hulu has anyway.
So, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to build a brand that becomes essential, which is if you're the person who does not subscribe to Netflix, you're the nerd, you're the odd person out. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? What's missing? You know, it's the HBO thing, right? HBO did that first and really well. If you're at the water cooler and everybody's talking about The Sopranos and you say, "Oh, I don't have HBO," then you're not invited to the Christmas party.
It got me. We talked. A little friend of mine told me about a series on Netflix. Yeah, did all the young going bananas over.
Yeah,
and, I had let my Netflix subscription because I let it go for a minute there. Because what the hell, dude? With all these things every month, $8, $9.99.
Yeah,
and now I have to reboot it. Now I will do this. I will boot up any one of those things for a month, and then kill it. I did it for Twin Peaks, and then I killed it.
Yeah,
but Netflix, oh man, 7 million, dude. You got to admit,
what is it now? $8-9 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so 7 million, so 7 times, so that's now an additional $56 million per month.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say basic 60 million. Let's round it up because it's not going to make a difference. So that's another $60 million per month. That is 600. That's $500 million per year that you just added.
Yeah. Okay,
so they do that again. They've just added another $1 billion a year to their earnings.
And there is not a studio, brick and mortar studio in this town, anywhere in the world that can do that.
Well, no, I mean the movie business in its entirety between all the studios did what, $7 billion last year?
Yeah,
gross.
Yeah.
So that means that they are now basically pulling, and none of those Disney's the one that's making most of that. Disney's pulling in like at least half of that.
Disney, Marvel,
yeah.
Pixar,
so
Disney, Marvel.
Netflix is they're spending an awful lot to get to that place. Their net is not there yet. They're still a money losing operation, but
they're a worldwide money-losing operation. That's the other thing. I mean, they keep clearing all these territories.
Here's what I find interesting. A week ago, we were talking about how they're having their little tiff with the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah,
and they're not going to have their films in competition because they refuse to adhere to French law on putting movies into theaters because if you put a movie into a French theater, you're not allowed to actually show it on television or on streaming or anything for like 3 years. Mm-hmm. And Netflix is, screw that. We're not gonna cut our own throats. They're not opposed to putting it into theaters. They're just opposed to that 3-year window, which was implemented a long time ago.
It is out of date.
It is to some degree out of date. Streaming, it doesn't apply to streaming operations. French television will have their Sunday night movie. Back in the 80s, I remember being like, "Oh, the Sunday night movie, it is Jaws," or whatever it is. And they wanted to make sure that something didn't go from theaters to that.
Right.
In like 6 months' time or 8 months' time.
Which was more or less the same thing. I mean, here, I mean, if you didn't catch, Superman in 1970, whatever, in theaters, you were not going to see Superman on television for 3 years.
But here's the other interesting thing now. This week, it was announced that Netflix is looking to buy theaters.
Yeah.
Possibly even Landmark from Mark Cuban to up their Oscar chances. Now, Netflix until now, I find this interesting for 2 reasons. First, that literally a week after they said we're not going to play ball releasing movies into theaters, they decide they want to buy theaters. Yeah, that I find interesting. But secondarily, Netflix has always been sort of, we don't care about Oscars. Yeah, we don't care about awards. It was Amazon. It's Jeff Bezos. He's the one that wants to win an Oscar.
Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah, they want to play the Oscar game. They want to play the awards game. And Netflix, here they're writing off the Cannes Film Festival. Well, we're sorry about that. Sorry to our filmmakers, but we don't really care about awards. Ultimately, that's not part of our model. And now they care about theaters and awards. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going on there in the boardroom, but clearly there are two different mindsets.
At least here versus overseas for sure.
Yeah,
and maybe even more places because there are all these. Like I said, they cleared all these territories.
Yeah.
And mostly they know that they're not going to lose any filmmakers because filmmakers want to be in bed with Netflix because Netflix at the end of the day can give you a series.
True.
And that's where the money actually is.
It is.
So some filmmaker makes a movie. The movie with Netflix, it doesn't play in Cannes. That's okay. Here are 3 seasons of that TV show you wanted to do.
And I'm going to make a prediction too. The thing that I think a lot of people have been afraid of, and I'm one of them, I admit, is that if the Netflix bubble collapses, it's devastating because now it's like a drug, right? Everyone is now relying on it. They've created a new normal of a certain number of series. There's money just flowing to series like nobody's business. More people can be showrunners than ever before. It's opened up a lot of job opportunities for creatives, tons, and they're committed to California and Los Angeles too, which is great because all these people who are fleeing this state for incentive states can stay home and they can keep paying.
Now
mortgage.
There's not enough stage space.
There isn't.
Here. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Netflix has their own little mini studio here, and they're buying Luc Besson's studio for God knows why. And seriously, that makes no sense to me. But still, whatever. They're throwing cash at everything. And but if that collapses, wow! Suddenly there is massive unemployment. The money evaporates. There's nothing to fill that space. However, if other companies are stepping up to go after that same audience, well, now we've got competition, and everybody keeps saying, what Disney postponed their big Netflix competitor for a year. They're coming out next year, 2019,
right?
And I have a theory that the whole Movies Anywhere platform, that Ultraviolet and Disney Anywhere, that when that competition ended and everything became Movies Anywhere, and now you can, you buy your Warner and your Universal and your Fox and your Disney, and you put it all into your formerly Ultraviolet Movies Anywhere digital locker, and you can watch it anywhere. I have a theory that Disney is going to fold that into their system, so that you will now have a seamless way when the Disney Netflix thing launches. It won't just be, I'm going to add these Disney movies to my queue. It will be, and here is my Movies Anywhere account linked to it, and I can add all my Warner Brothers movies that I have in my digital locker, and that all the movies you own on Blu-ray that came with that code, you're going to be able to fold all of that into this one master monster Disney ecosystem, which represents not just what they're providing you, but what you also own yourself. I think that's what Disney is aiming for. And buying Fox just makes that even more deadly.
The content, more content.
Just more content.
Which, of course, is the gigantic threat, the only threat to Netflix, which is why they keep trying to get big, is all of these people taking their content back.
Yeah.
And emptying them out, which is why they have to create original content, which is why they'll give almost anybody, with 2 pieces of string, go make a movie. Because they have to build up that content to serve all of these subscribers.
Yeah.
Or buy things.
Which is true. They haven't really bought things, have they?
No. So I don't know what ownership, but if you buy it, you own it. You make it, you own it. Maybe they just don't want to be associated with any other brand other than the Netflix brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do think that they're going to have an effect on theater attendance ultimately. Yeah. I would love for them to buy those theaters and lower the ticket prices.
And of course, the other thing that's sort of lingering out there that's a potential game changer, paradigm shifter is MoviePass.
Yeah.
And those are 2 former Netflix guys. By the way,
$10 a month for 1 entry a day
per day. And by the way, those 2 ex-Netflix guys who founded MoviePass, I'll bet you didn't even know that they're 2 black guys.
I had no idea.
Yeah, see? Nobody's even talking about that.
But do you think that will work?
You know what? Here's the thing that people don't like about MoviePass is that, number one, MoviePass has been trying to strong-arm exhibitors into sharing more money than they want to. In other words, saying, okay, we're going to fill a whole lot of seats that weren't filled before, but in exchange for us filling your seats and still paying you full price, you're going to actually throw a little bit of cash our way as well.
They used to call that payola back in the day.
Well, it's the old Miramax thing. If you want this, you got to take this, or you got to they're playing they're kind of working the pulleys, which is smart business. Look, if you got the leverage,
you've got leverage. I don't see where the leverage is though. Yeah. Well, the leverage would be if they had a whole lot of subscribers.
I'll tell you where that's the game. That's what they learned at Netflix, which is you gotta go for volume, you gotta go for quantity, and if you have that quantity, then that gives you like block power. You can literally say we have X millions of people, and they've been swelling subscribers too.
They have.
MoviePass has been, but they added like 3 or 4 million new subscriptions in the last month, which nobody really paid a whole lot of attention to.
I didn't know, and I'm deeply impressed.
Yeah, it's very impressive. So they're kind of.
I would love to see the demographics on MoviePass subscribers, how old they are, male, female, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering how many young people are doing that. People who are going to want to go see Infinity Wars and all that kind of stuff.
More and more young people are doing it.
Oh, yeah. I'm really surprised.
I am too. But again, the data mining, the data analysis, all that stuff that Netflix has been so good at, that's helping them sort of engineer their path forward. So, and MoviePass wants to start making and distributing movies as well. So if they do that, and if MoviePass eventually winds up buying theaters as well, look, in 10 years, this entire business will not look anything at all the same.
Unrecognizable.
It'll be unrecognizable.
Mostly in terms of where things live, what plays in theaters, what plays in your YouTube Red, what's on which. I think everything's going to find its corner. I just hope that every corner doesn't have its own price point.
Yeah.
So that we get back to the thing that we were talking about before.
Right.
Of where, if I want this, I have to. Because this is on topic, folks. In California, we're thinking about doing our own version of net neutrality.
Yeah.
Statewide net neutrality. Because of obviously all this stuff.
Yeah.
You might end up with a situation like that, with different lanes. For people to sort of travel in.
And my feeling on that is that eventually the whole net neutrality argument becomes moot. Long term, everything's going to move to the internet, just like phones did. I've been on VoIP phone service for a long time. I gave up there was no reason to keep paying $40 a month per line if I can pay like $8 or $9 for a VoIP line. I'm saving money. So I moved to VoIP a long time ago, and you get discounts for paying in advance. So we basically, we have 4 lines in our house. 4 lines. We have 4 lines, and we pay like $190 every other year.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's great. And then for 2 years, I don't need to worry about it, right? Yeah. And that's amazing. That's so that kind of model is great, and it's going to move to that too. You're going to, these companies like, for example, DirecTV Now, right, is not a satellite service. DirecTV Now is their package through streaming. And they've got a new deal, which is if you sign up for 3 months of DirecTV Now, we're going to give you a free 4K Apple TV box to watch it on.
Yeah.
So they give you the box free, which can record stuff as well. So you sign up, you're like, I'm down with that. That's like, $80 or something for 3 months.
For 3 months, yeah.
Sweet. Here you go. Here, give me my free Apple box, which lets me watch a million other things. And eventually, nothing is going to be broadcast. Nothing's going to go through your cable provider, right? DirecTV will stick in there because of games like that. But everybody's going to move to being basically an internet package. You're going to pay somebody to give you an internet package. And local cable companies aren't going to be able to justify their existence because they make their money off of carriage fees.
Right.
They say, okay, Disney, we're going to put all your ESPN channels on there if you pay us.
Or sports.
Or sports.
Yeah.
So if Fox Sports and ESPN and all these different packages, which are the lucrative ones, if they all move to the internet and say, okay, now we're going to sell our package directly to the consumer who has internet access, and we're going to bypass the cable provider. Well, then all they are is they're just maintaining lines and infrastructure and paying a bundle for all these repairmen who sit on their butts all day long waiting for a call.
And it'll be interesting because what you would end up then is with internet and over the air broadcast television, digital over the air broadcast television, which is so we would be back to 1958.
Yes,
basically.
All of those companies then, I think, are going to take their business and they're going to go elsewhere. And they're going to become internet providers, and then they're going to take all that infrastructure that they own and operate as a monopoly in your community, whether it's Warner Cable or
fiber optic
Xfinity
lines
or whatever. They're going to take all that infrastructure and they're going to sell it to your community. They're going to give it to your community and they're going to say, you deal with it like a utility.
Like a utility, which, of course, is what it ought to be.
Yeah.
It's what it has become.
It's the content versus the infrastructure. That's the thing. People who argue for net neutrality say, look, it's all this infrastructure. It's utility. The people who argue against it say, yes, but there's the content parameter.
Stuff.
It's a hybrid thing. Once you separate those two things, which eventually will happen, then the problems
I know that on that day I have no problem. That's okay with me because I can control my content.
You will pay your city
whatever.
Entity,
exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You will pay them $60 to maintain the lines.
Yeah.
And they're not looking to make a profit. They're just looking to, maintain the infrastructure for you. It's like fixing a pothole
just like the electrical.
That's
grid.
it.
Yeah.
They're just gonna keep you well with your service, and then you go online and you
decide what you want.
And who's going to provide it to you? Like, what VoIP company am I going with? Well, I go with VoIPO. Some people go with Vonage, whatever it is. So you're going to have that kind of a thing for content, and it's going to be fierce competition.
Which should drive prices down, so maybe we can start paying what I know we talk about this all the time, but people pay $20 a month for internet service in Europe.
Yeah.
I don't even you don't even want to know about the speeds of the internet and the cost of it in South Korea.
Oh, it's insane.
It's insane.
But it's a small country with a lot of cash. And it's very easy for them to replace the grid, right? I mean, if we have to rewire something, we've got 1,000 miles of nothing in the middle of this country, prairie and desert. That you gotta stretch wires across. It's really expensive to redo this country, so we got to figure something out.
Yeah, anyway, I agree with him.
So, all right, we've rambled enough. Got a couple of really, really good listener mails. Go ahead and email us at gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. Either of them will get to us. And by the way, keep visiting cinegods.com. We're going to get that website spruced up over time and more content up there. Paul Driscoll writes to us on some thoughts as to the state of cinema in response to questions that we posed a while back. And I'm going to just kind of sum up a few things that he says here, because this pertains to what we were just talking about. He said, keep in mind, I'm from the UK, so answering the question about failing cinema and my opinion as to why it may be different from the US. He says, first is technology. I now have a massive TV at home with a great picture. I have 1,000 ways, too many choices to watch any film or TV show anytime, instantly, with little to no outlay. Let's also consider, and don't, let's see, Kodi plus a stream app, which is a UK thing, gives many people access to literally any movie pretty much for free and instantly, compared to 20 years ago, when you had to get VH tapes and Blockbuster and so forth. He said also going to the movies is expensive. If I go with my wife and adult daughter, you're looking at between all of us and snacks around £50, and then usually a meal out is tied into going. So before you know it, it can be £100 for an evening entertainment. That to me is the biggest issue. Right? Is that the cost of the entire evening going out compared to the cost of staying in with your subscription Netflix. Got to start lowering prices or going with subscription movie pass deals. You got to make it worth it for people. And then watching the film, you no longer have anyone policing the screen. So if someone chats through the movie or looks at their phone, who's going to stop them? Bad behavior. Now, Alamo Drafthouse has that figured out. They scold you and they warn you before the movie even starts. They put the guilt of God right into your soul, and you don't dare.
And it's actually quite bright, because what it does is it calls out people before they make the mistake.
Yeah.
And then if they do make the mistake, and then there is retribution for that, they can't say anything, because we told you before you even screwed up.
And he goes on and says, next, the flag for me is that critics are often getting it wrong a lot of the time. Very, very true. So I'm making a big outlay on certain movies, and critics say it was amazing, and I think it's bad. Fair enough.
Switch critics. There are a lot of us.
There are. He says, now to watch a film, it needs to be spectacle, effect heavy to make it worth seeing on a big screen in the cinema. A film like Three Billboards simply not needed to see on that scale. I get it. Totally get it. That's why Netflix is where it is, because there's now a middle ground, and those things that they can migrate to your big screen at home. Comic book, and this is where I think it was really interesting in his comments. Comic book movies really highlight this. A film based on a book is character and story focused, whereas a comic is visual focused with story as secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
very much.
Here's the thing. Are you seeing Avengers next week?
Yes.
Okay. You seeing the morning or the evening?
Evening.
Okay. Mark's in town, by the way. I haven't hooked up with him yet.
We're gonna hook up.
So I'm taking Mark to the. I'm going with Mark to the. I'm picking him up.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the morning screening. Okay. Now I counted them up. There are somewhere in the neighborhood between all the Marvel characters in this. Now that we've added the Guardians of the Galaxy into this thing, and
all the Black Panther,
and all of that whole crew, and all these people. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 Marvel characters who are all going to be like figuring out how to take down Thanos.
Mm-hmm,
all right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you add Thanos, we're over 20 characters that are central to this story. If you assume that, like most of these things, that 50% of it is action,
mm-hmm.
and that the movie is going to be a whopping 2.5 hours long, which I think it's somewhere verging on that. It might be 2:15, but let's say 2.5 for the sake of argument. That basically means no character is going to get more than 180 seconds of dialogue in this movie. I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't.
Can you imagine all of those powerful agents going through that script, counting their clients' lines? Going, no. She's gonna have to say something else.
I don't know. I have a feeling that like Hawkeye and Black Widow are gonna get shafted. That they're gonna sort of show up and go, "I'm on it."
Yeah,
and that's it.
And with the arrow, and
they're gonna get a lot of action, but you're not gonna do a lot of talking. So anyway, Paul goes on to say, okay, so what would bring me back to cinema? Good films based on books I love or new topics will get me there. Ready Player One in 4DX will get me there. Outside of that, I recently watched a fun old horror movie called Popcorn from 1990. If they do a movie night of old films, made it an experience. If they kitted out the cinema, they got the staff to dress up, they made it fun. I would love it if they did a movie club. Put on a classic or a new film, but have a venue where you could chat about the film with like-minded people. Overall, though technology has moved on, and sadly, the Hollywood we grew up with will never be the same. I agree. I think he's right.
Yep.
I think he's right. So, all right, let's get on to talking about movies. We're deep into the show now, so I'm gonna hit a bunch of documentary stuff on from PBS and some others. Hit this off real quickly. Bill Nye, Science Guy, one man's mission to make science matter. Bill Nye has become
I love Bill Nye.
He's become kind of a political firestorm for things that he's said, and in global warming, and he shows up on news shows he probably shouldn't show up on. But that said, this is actually not bad. He is a figure. He's educated a couple of generations of kids with his show.
Yes.
And his new show on Netflix is a mess.
Yeah,
it's a disaster. Don't watch it. but where he came from with his original show, Bill Nye the Science Guy, that's an interesting story. And he's now the CEO of the Planetary Society, which was originally founded by Carl Sagan. Yeah. And this is on Blu-ray. And I'm going to recommend this. This is a good doc. It played a bunch of festivals, including AFI Docs and South by Southwest. It's worth checking out.
Bill can be surly, but he gets the science right.
Yeah, you know what?
The older he gets, the more surly he gets.
Exactly. We also have The Final Year by Greg Barker, which is about the final year of the Obama presidency. Which doesn't turn out in the end the way that I think all the filmmakers and certainly the people in the film were expecting to. Nonetheless, it makes it more dramatic, and it's very well done.
Yeah, a certain amount of discord in that film between Samantha and all that kind of.
Yeah.
I love that they leave that in the movie.
I do too.
You know,
in that degree, it reminded me of D.A. Pennebaker's The War Room a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's not on the same level as The War Room. They didn't invest as much into it because it's The War Room is about getting there, and this is about leaving there. Yeah. So there's less drama in being at the end of the cycle than at the beginning of the cycle. But it has a lot of the same honesty and fly on the wallness, which I thought was cool. From IndiePix, a Tom Schiller indie doc, Henry Miller, Asleep and Awake. This was shot when Henry Miller was 81, and it's, Henry Miller has kind of fallen off the radar just a little bit. And this was made in 2007, and boy, what a really fascinating way of resurrecting a significant character, looking back on his artifacts and his life and his philosophy. And this is a guy who was very much a product of the sexual revolution, even the sexual revolution before the sexual revolution. He was kind of the author of much of the sexual revolution. And it's interesting to see what has survived, what has dated. It's a really, if you don't know who Henry Miller was or why he mattered, first go take a look at Henry and June, the Phil Kaufman movie, which is just tremendous.
Henry and June is the film that gave us that NC-17.
NC-17, that's right.
That was Henry.
And then look at this. Victorian Rebel, Marianne North from the Smithsonian Channel. An amazing look at just an absolutely wonderful painter, a tremendous artist, who just completely reinvigorated a particular kind of painting, nature painting and botany, and she was to plants what Audubon was to birds, is maybe the best way to say it. Really extraordinary documentary about a wonderful, wonderful figure that you should know an awful lot about. A great painter who brought a very particular female point of view to things too. More PBS stuff here. Gonna go through this little PBS pile as quickly as possible. Let's see, Survival Guide for Pain-Free Living with Peggy Cappy. I'm going to recommend only because Peggy Cappy has done a ton of these sort of exercise and health-related things. And pain in this opioid epidemic has become kind of a much more headline thing than it was before. So people are drugging themselves too much, and in the wake of people drugging themselves too much, I think it's worthwhile to talk about how you can cope with pain in a drug-free way, and that's what this is. Survival Guide for Pain-Free Living with Peggy Cappy and Lee Albert. Definitely worth checking out. It's quite a lot of material here, and if you have a loved one who's fighting pain, this is really going to be very, very helpful. I know some people who've really, really struggled with all kinds of pain, and it sucks. When you hurt all the time, you can't live your life.
Tell me about it, baby.
Impossible Builds, Volume 1, The Scorpion Tower, Europe in the Desert, and The Floating House. This is just 3 really, really cool episodes of Impossible Builds, just amazing architectural achievements and engineering feats. The Scorpion Tower, which is in Miami, is kind of unbelievably wild and weird. It's really, really interesting. Dame Zaha Hadid was the architect there, and it's really, really interesting. Europe in the Desert goes into creating these like artificial islands near Dubai that are all kind of European. You got to see it. It's hard to. It's this Austrian guy, and anyway, the artificial islands thing freaks me out. It's really interesting. And then episode 3, Floating House, is also in Dubai. It's this house that floats. It's just the weirdest thing you've ever seen. Anyway, really, really cool stuff. Animals with Cameras. It's the sweetest thing. This is an episode of this is Nature and BBC Earth who did this. 3 episodes. Who knew that you could just take a camera, you just strap one of those little like GoPro deals onto an animal and watch what they do.
I wish I would have known.
That's all it is, man. It's great. Next, I want to see the people with cameras. Just strap a GoPro onto somebody's head, strap it onto my head. You will not believe what you see. It will bore you stiff. You're walking between a TV screen and an office all day long. That's what it is. It is the most boring thing. But when the chimpanzees are the best ones. When they put a camera on a chimp, man, that is the sweetest thing in the world.
Because they can go high and they can go low.
That is VR like nobody's business. You have no idea. And then Jesus, Countdown to Calvary with Hugh Bonneville. This aired just before Easter. I highly recommend this.
Hugh Bonneville.
This is so. Here's the thing. When I first watched this, I thought, this is basically the story of the last 6 days of Jesus's life, and it's revisiting that whole passion thing through the eyes of scholars, touring the actual sites in the Holy Land, really kind of trying to put the history to it, really going to it in a very hard way. And I thought, oh, Hugh Bonneville. So they went and they figured we need an anchor for this. Let's go get the guy from Downton Abbey to really give it a sense of authenticity, and he'll just talk to some people. No, Hugh Bonneville, before he was an actor, he was a theology student. This is where he pulls out all of his old textbooks and says, "Oh, here they are." He's got them there in this backpack. He goes, "I haven't seen this beauty in 30 years." I mean, it's like you're like, "Wow, seriously, dude."
You gotta love that. You gotta love that.
He knows this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. He has these. He's not just some actor who sits down with a scholar and goes, "So, Jesus, tell me about Jesus." No, he doesn't. He knows it. He asks them the hard questions and they come back. He knows how to talk the talk. It's really, really good. That's Jesus Countdown to Calvary.
I love it.
Let's see what else we got here. Dealt is okay. This is this is a film by Luke Coram, and this was at South by Southwest last year as well. And it's basically a profile of Richard Turner, who's a kind of a card magician. He's a great magician, and it's going into the whole world of card tricks and I doesn't interest me an awful lot, but how people become magicians and how he became an ace magician and made a go of it, that's interesting. I'm always kind of fascinated by people who can make a career out of being magicians.
Yeah, well, yeah, those little weird, odd choices, and there they are actually doing it,
Because most of the magicians that I've seen are performing kids' birthday parties, and it's not a job.
Well, it's like a one or the other thing. You're either David Blaine floating across the sky, or Copperfield, or the birthday party.
Yes, exactly. It's just well, anyway. In His Own Time is a really prescient and very powerful documentary that's hard to believe it was made in 2015.
Wow.
Because that's still in our moment. I mean, the issue of police brutality in black communities has been one for generations, but has really, in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, has really kind of grabbed the headlines again. And this is very much a 2015 doc that looks at that takes a global view of it from all parts of the country, from the South to the North, even into New York. The behaviors of SWAT teams, that have become over-militarized. And kind of central to this is an incident that took place on the University of Florida campus with a Ghanaian doctoral student, Kofi Adu Brempong. Can't believe I got through that name without destroying it the first time. It's a horrific thing what happened to him. It is absolutely horrific, and that sort of is the launching point, the central point of having this discussion. And it's a really good doc. It's completely scholarly, and it really goes into all the nuances of the issue and doesn't come up with any easy answers, which I really think is what it needed to do. Gunrunners was part of the Hot Doc selection. This is directed by Anjali Nayar. This is a film movement doc about Kenyan world-class runners. And everybody's always wondering what is it that makes the Kenyans such amazing runners? Now, I always like to joke, kind of half-heartedly, it's like, well, in Kenya, running is transportation.
Yeah,
that's how you get from place to place.
I got a better joke.
What's the better one?
They're trying to get the hell out of Kenya.
Well, it's a lot more than that.
Yes,
and it is truly amazing. Ethiopia, which is right there adjacent to Kenya, used to produce all the great runners. Yeah. And that particular part of Africa is home to the greatest distance runners ever. Now Kenya specifically, men and women. Yeah. And so this specifically focuses on Julius Aril and Robert Matanda. And it's really interesting talking about what led them to become runners, because it's not necessarily instant track. It's running from things that are threatening you, whether it's animals or police or political oppression, whatever it is.
Armed groups and all that kind of. Which is what I meant by my little stupid joke. But, there you go.
And anyway, so this is basically, this is all about the, they call it the tagline here is the American Dream, Kenyan style, but it's very much the Kenyan dream. This is in fact, like Tim said, how you get out of Kenya.
Yeah.
It's every country that has some kind of an issue that people want to escape, there's a way of getting out, and it might be making movies, it might be running,
soccer or football,
soccer for sure,
as they would call it.
Absolutely,
and it's a perfectly rational thing to do. And in Ethiopia before, and now Kenya, they look around and they see this is the way out of here. For one thing, running only costs the shoes.
Yeah.
There are now shoe companies. Adidas is one of them. They go up to these places and they give the kids the shoes.
Yeah.
And then they wait.
Yep.
And it's that one. Yep. That's the one. Yeah. And then the next thing, and I think it's great. It's the kind of sport. It's the kind of sport that I like, in that it really is about individual, personal accomplishment. We're gonna all run, and one of us will cross that finish line first, but nobody got hurt. And I just love it.
Nicholas Geierhalter, and boy, he spells Nicholas in that real European way, Nikolaus. No CH in there. So Nicholas Geierhalter made a really interesting doc, especially for science people, called CERN, CERN, which is the research. That's the acronym for the research organization known as the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And this is all about the Large Hadron Collider, the super collider, and you get, you're talking to a lot of people who work on this thing and run this thing, and it's a lot of high-minded science that goes way above my pay grade. But the idea is that you're recreating the Big Bang inside this contraption, and you kind of need to watch this thing a couple of times to really wrap your arms around what these people are talking about, but it's still pretty great.
The Large Hadron Collider allowed us to discover the Higgs boson.
Yes,
which is important, and you should look it up. It's why you're sitting down or standing down. It's why you're not floating away.
After the show, you can explain this to me, because honestly, it's just
it's why everything.
Yeah. Then we've got on the lighter side, Designing Dogs from the Smithsonian Channel. Look, here's the thing. Dogs are one of the most diverse things ever created. There are not nearly, like cows, what are there, like 8 or 9 breeds of cows? Maybe 10?
Yeah.
Okay, horses. Okay, there are maybe 15, 20 breeds of horses. You know how many different breeds of dogs there are? Like hundreds. It's unbelievable. It's like, it's just,
yet they're
it's
all
endless.
Still dogs.
And there's a whole way of designing dogs, which is what this gets into, which is that creating a dog breed and breeding dogs is a science that just doesn't exist with any other animal,
and doesn't always turn out well.
It does well as dachshunds.
Yeah.
That's an oops.
Yeah.
My mother grew up with dachshunds they're designed to chase badgers into holes. But you look at that thing and you just go, I'm sorry, that's a mistake.
Can't be a happy animal.
Yeah, you look at chihuahuas and you go, that's another oops.
No.
That's an oops. That wasn't supposed to happen that way. Mabel, Tiger Trainer, narrated by Melissa Leo, a film by Leslie Zemeckis. I will leave it to you to figure out if that's any relationship. Mabel Stark, the Tiger Trainer, who made a splash in circuses in the early part of the 20th century, joined the circus in 1911 and became the first woman to train tigers, which she would do for 57 years with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. You think, oh, she's like the two Austrian guys. No. What are they?
The ones that
in Vegas,
with the tigers.
Guys,
one of them got eaten by a tiger.
Yeah, right. Okay, and here's the thing: this was not an easy job. She's not just some lady that went out there and went, no. Yeah. She got attacked by these things over and over. It's an unbelievable life.
Wow.
Unbelievable life. Really incredible. I'm amazed that this hasn't become a movie. This seems to me like something somebody would jump at immediately. Melissa Leo is a wonderful narrator here, and it's pretty great. And by the way, Leslie Zemeckis made a documentary here that was produced by Robert Zemeckis. I wonder if that's right.
Well.
So anyway, Mabel, Tiger Trainer. It's really quite a good film. So Zemeckis talent runs in the family.
That's good.
The last two, Art Offline, all one word, ARTOFFLINE, Art Offline, by Manuel Correa, is I'm not a modern art person, so I kind of don't like digital art, modern art, the world where the world meets of those things. It's a little bit pretentious. However, at least they don't try to push this in my face and say this is art. They put it out there and they say some people think this is crap. You're probably among them, but you make up your own mind. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, it's crap, but I'm glad you left it up to my choice. So Art Offline, all one word. It's interesting doc for people who want to if you're a graphic artist, that'll probably be a little bit more interesting. And then The War Show. This played at Toronto. This is also from Film Movement. And this is really, really very, very interesting. This deals with the conflict in Syria, which of course is very, very close to me, as I was working with Syrian refugees last summer. Can't believe it was last summer, almost a year. That happened quickly. This all goes back to March 2011, when a radio figure by the name of Obaida Zaitoun joined the protests in Syria right at the very, very beginning of when the war was kind of spiraling out of control, and it didn't have to become a war at that point. It was sort of part of the what they called the Arab Spring at the time. That turned out to be a lot less of a spring than I think people had hoped for. But what transpires after that, and where that leads, and what happens to him and his friends, that's the subject of this documentary, and it is absolutely devastating. There have been a lot of great documentaries that have, some of which have gotten nominated for Academy Awards, and they all work together. They're not competing. So I would say if the conflict in Syria is of concern to you, definitely watch this. Add it to your view list. All right, Tim, what else do we have?
You want to do a few of these
new movies?
New movies?
Let's do it. Dive in.
Some of these folks, The Post has hit... look, The Post, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
This was the one movie that in our past Oscar run here got nominated and all that kind of stuff that I knew Steven Spielberg was unequivocally absent, not going to win.
No.
Of all the movies we were thinking about, the one I knew wasn't going to win was this one. Steven could have stayed at home.
Yeah.
Which is a sort of striking thing to say.
Yeah.
Particularly since I like this movie. I like Meryl in this movie. I like that this movie is really about Meryl. Not Meryl, but Catherine Graham. Yeah. And we were in the middle of that whole sort of Me Too-y kind of moment. And this movie comes along, and this movie, is sort of paying homage to this woman who is a very interesting person who had to take over that paper after her husband committed suicide. And I thought that Meryl, who also got nominated, was just striking in this movie. I like this movie. I know it's not a popular thing to say. Yeah. I like Tom Hanks in this movie. It's really concerned with getting the facts right, as much as it possibly can. Pentagon Papers are what at stake here. That's the period. So, I like The Post, and I think people should see it, particularly as we are having some interesting political moments now, walking back through some of these histories. I've been doing a little bit lately, diddling around, because I was wandering, I was reading the paper.
Yeah.
When this was going on, I was reading the paper.
Yeah.
So I understood all this. Anyway, this is pretty neat if you ask me. It has all kinds of new stuff on it. So check out The Post. It's a good movie, a Steven Spielberg film. Den of Thieves, unrated. This was a sort of surprising hit. This little
kind of wasn't it?
Movie. It was okay. Curtis Jackson, O'Shea, Ice Cube's son. Doing pretty good in this movie. Loosely based on the LA Sheriff's Department and their sort of crash crew and a bank robbery crew. And all of that is so loose, it's not really even worth mentioning. Look, it's no Heat. But it's an okay little
substitute
heist.
for that. Yeah, if you need that itch scratched.
Yeah,
if you need that itch scratched.
And this unrated one, which is in the theatrical version is also on this.
Yeah,
so you can check that one out. Insidious: The Last Key.
Is it the last Insidious?
Hell no.
No,
okay. But at the moment, it's going to pretend like it is. All right, it's kind of neat. What it does do is that it takes that doctor, what's her name, back to her little house in Mexico. Where it all started in the first film and all kind of. She didn't, so that's kind of neat. It is closing a circle in a certain kind of way. It's just as creepy as the other ones. If you're into these, you're into these. I don't give a damn about them. But if you're into them, you're into them.
Yeah.
And lots of people are into them. Lynn Shay, who the old lady in the film, I must say, I love me some Lynn Shay.
Yeah.
She's fantastic in these movies. Digital movie included, blah, 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 blah. Look, this also has some deleted scenes and an alternate ending.
Nice.
So groovy.
All right. We got Humor Me with Jermaine Clement and Elliot Gould as son and father, respectively. Look, I'm going to recommend, just on principle, any movie with Jermaine Clement in it. Jermaine Clement could just sit there and stare at a camera for 120 minutes, and I would still laugh constantly because Jermaine Clement is just a funny guy.
He's the best thing on Legion, which just booted up a new thing because it's kind of this time out, but he's funny.
He's great. Yeah. He's just a naturally, unbelievably funny guy, and he's not Jim Carrey funny. He's not Jerry Lewis funny. He's deadpan funny. It's just it's all so understated and just so.
You don't have to fall down.
He doesn't have to fall down. He just has to stand there and just kind of look at you and do his weird little tweaky deadpan thing. He's just so unbelievably funny, and he's so good with voices. So basically, he plays a playwright who's got writer's block and. Among other many problems. And so he moves in with his dad in this retirement community. And of course, as these things always happen, something with that community stirs the creativity within him, and things wind up turning out okay.
Group. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of great supporting.
Loosely reminded me of that Guffman movie from Chris Guess's movie from way back in the day.
And a lot of great supporting parts in here. I mean, look, Bebe Neuwirth, Annie Potts.
Yeah.
There are just some really wonderful people in here. Ingrid Michaelson. It's a fun film. Look, Paddington 2. I loved the original Paddington. I went on Film Week and raved about it, and our friend Charles Solomon, who is a purist for the original Paddington books and the artwork of Paddington, just about bonked me on the head because he just thought this whole CGI Paddington thing was horrific. But the original was so well done, so clever, so well written, so sweet. Hugh Bonneville, once again. We got a lot of Hugh Bonneville. I thought it was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful movie. And how do you top Paddington? You top it with Paddington 2, which is, I'm not going to say it's better, but I'm going to say it's just as good. It is just as good.
The Paddington movies are just ridiculously charming.
They're so sweet. Look, in the first one, you had Nicole Kidman being all evil and wicked. Now you have Hugh Grant being all evil and wicked. They're picking they're picking actors that they know really, really want to chew the scenery as a villain
and go the other way.
And go the other way. And it's so smart. And the whole it's kind of a treasure hunt thing going on here with a treasure map, an interactive treasure map, and it's very clever and it's very sweet. And Paddington winds up. I'm not going to give anything away. Paddington winds up in jail at one point, and his Brendan Gleeson is the grumbly, just horribly incorrigible, mean, incredibly feared chef of the prison. And of course, Paddington and his sandwiches. I'll leave the rest to you. It is just so charming, and you can add this to your Movies Anywhere account. It is a wonderful movie. It looks beautiful on Blu-ray.
Maze Runner: The Death Cure. This is the final in that whole little group of Maze Runner films. Well, I wasn't particularly big fan of them, but I got to tell you, they weren't any worse than any of the other ones. There were like 4 or 5 of those series.
Yeah,
running around these sort of youth things where apocalyptic, this, that, or the other thing, and the children have to save us all. And this particular one, there's a cure that they have to go to the last city. The city what's funny about what the last city is called in this movie? The Last City. Somebody,
you know,
that's screenwriting, baby.
As we are recording this, by the way, as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm heading over to Film Week to ramble about the 15 other movies. I don't know what I do with my life. I don't. I just stare at screens all day long.
Not to forget the French Film Festival.
Yeah, and then I got Colcoa next week, moderating 2 events. If you're in LA, come on down. Colcoa at the DGA. But one of the films we were supposed to talk about on Film Week, which I'm going to talk about now for a second, is Genesis, which is this really horrible kind of remake of Ex Machina. And I was telling you before the show, it's like if you're going to do a post-apocalyptic movie, at least a low-budget one, don't show me a post-apocalyptic world in which they have higher tech than we have now, because that makes no sense.
But it's all in a cave.
It's all in a cave. You're all underground, but we have great tech. Oh, I wouldn't want to leave that cave, man. If I had that tech in my home theater, I would never go outside. But the dumb thing there is they have all these little enclaves. It's like, Eden and Jericho and all these biblical names for the underground cities. Nobody would do that. You'd call it Base 1 and Base 2.
Yes.
Whatever.
And we got to figure out how to get back to the surface.
That's nonsense. From Breaking Glass, last seen in Idaho. I love the taglines here. This is seeing the future can't save you. Really? Because I would think that it would. I would think that seeing the future could absolutely save you.
Duck.
Anyway, so this is a low budget science fiction-y suspense thriller. Their memory issues and this woman named Summer, played by Hallie Shepard, wakens from a coma and she has complete amnesia. And then there's all this other wacky stuff that falls into line and trying to put your life together, and none of it makes any sense. The only thing that's interesting here is that it has some decent casting, one of whom is Casper Van Dien, who, I kid you not, has not aged in the last 75 years. And he's not even 75 years old.
Yeah.
Casper Van Dien looked the same before he was born as he looks now.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
He always had that chin and that head, and he stays lean, and he's got that hair.
What is he, 60?
He's older than me. So that's close.
He looks like he's 35.
Yeah.
He looks the same age he did in Starship Troopers.
I happen to know this because I happen to know this. You know how much he gets for knocking those movies out?
How much?
He gets $1 million.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And then a nice little trashy slasher movie. These things always work better when they just don't try too hard and when they just let the low budget quality just rip through it. Breaking Glass also gives us Rave Party Massacre. Another great tagline here: when the beats stop, the horror begins.
It's set in it's set in the early 90s.
Yeah, it's set in the early 90s.
The music is really really wicked.
They kick up the whole 90s rave environment. Look, it's all shot in really contained locations, and it's silly and it's just generic slasher stuff, but it's set against a rave party and it's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of Ben Kingsley and Jackie Bissett are in this movie, Backstabbing for Beginners, which is directed by this Danish director named Pierre Fly.
Yeah.
I hate Pierre Fly's movies. Thus, I hate this one too.
Okay.
And the thing that really bugs me the most about this movie, it's set in the UN, and it has to do with the Iraqi oil reserves in the UN food program, and it has all these UN workers engaged in this sort of nefarious conspiracy thing when this kid is trying to figure out what's going on. And what they're doing is they're doing this sort of really dirty food for oil kind of thing, where they're getting this oil and they're not giving the food to and it's kind of funky. And what I didn't like about this movie, why is he poking at the UN? This is a bunch of UN guys, but for some reason he's got a hard on for him, so I don't like that. Anyway.
All right, and then we got Strings. There are a lot of these kind of music romances coming out now. Some of them are kind of in that faith-based fringe, and a lot of them are just sort of country music inspired. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's really leading this off, other than the fact that apparently a lot of people in the country music world want to be actors.
Yeah,
it seems to be the thrust of it, and they can make these movies in
country music is all the rage, man.
They can make movies in anywhere now. They can even make them in Nashville or wherever they are. So anyway, this is about a kind of a rock and roll country guy played by Jason Michael Carroll, who heads for Nashville. he leaves the his rock and rolly world behind, and he goes straight for Nashville, and there you have the whole the kind of the formulaic backstage success. What do you trade for success? What are you giving up for success? And when do you leave success behind to embrace something more meaningful in your life? All that kind of stuff. Those things are all cliches, but you know what? It's well done. For a formulaic film, it's well done. Directed by a couple of guys, Robert Wagner and Patrick Dunnigan. And it's a decent cast. It's decently acted. I don't really know any of these people, but the music's good, and it's heartfelt.
Yep,
I got to give it some points for that.
I liked it. I liked it. Some of the little ones are good. The Chamber. This is one of those little movies that have figured out a way to set itself in one place, and make it and get made for $18. I'm not going to be angry about that. That's kind of a smart thing. And if you come up with a fairly intense thriller, you can get there. Ryan Reynolds did the one where he was in the car. And this one is set in a submersible, ostensibly off the coast, under the Yellow Sea, off the coast of Korea. And they're on a special ops mission. Something goes wrong. They're submerged. How will they survive? Can they get back to the top? Air's running out. Submersible is filling up. You can get some fairly intense stuff out of that. And they managed to actually do it. So The Chamber, check it out.
So we got some classic movies now. Going to kick through a few of these. Let me start with the Arrow stuff. We've got some really, really intense stuff from Arrow. There are no Arrow academies in here. These are all straight up Arrow video, which means this is all kind of genre stuff and really good ones too. Do not confuse the George Romero film Season of the Witch with the Halloween Season of the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Don't confuse those. Halloween 3 is the Halloween film that has nothing to do with Michael Myers or the Halloween franchise. It's also called Season of the Witch. This Season of the Witch is a George Romero film from 1972. And it's really kind of his attempt to do something other than a zombie movie, other than a Night of the Living Dead thing. And for the most part, it works. It was originally called Jack's Wife, and at one point it was titled Hungry Wives, and they tried to do that several different times. It's a supernatural, obviously witch-oriented story, but it's quite interesting. It's very effective in terms of its style, as early Romero often is, from the 60s, 50s, all the way from Night of the Living Dead right into the 70s. And lots and lots of really interesting extras in here, including Guillermo del Toro talking to George Romero, which is great. And there's even an audio commentary by Travis Crawford.
We lost George, not a couple of months ago.
Just months ago.
That's really,
So anyway, and then there's also an audio commentary to a location gallery that they go through with the Romero historian. A lot of really interesting stuff. If you're a Romero person, you'll really, really dig this. And then The Crazies is another Romero film that I am less fond of. It came the following year. People love that I know who love Romero. They really love The Crazies. It's a biological.
I love The Crazies.
Do you love The Crazies? See, the people who love The Crazies love The Crazies. It's I don't know. It's a little over the top for me. But look, Tim loves The Crazies. So who am I? It's too gory for me, to be honest. That's the thing.
That was when I was a gory. That's 80 what?
73.
73?
Yeah.
I would have thought it was about 80 or something.
Yeah.
I saw that movie in the drive-in, man.
It basically, Night of the Living Dead. Let's sort of do all this. Romero does here with The Crazies is he reinvents the zombie genre in the way that it is more today. Like everything that we have today, from 28 Days Later to World War Z, all of that. Our zombies today are not people who died and then came up out of the ground and walked slowly toward you so that they could gnaw on your fingers.
Yeah.
Our zombies today are living people who are infected by some kind of a biological virus that turns them into rampaging, fiercely running speed demon people who will eat your head in about 3 seconds flat.
Yeah.
That's what we have today. And that doesn't descend from Night of the Living Dead. That descends from The Crazies.
The Crazies, yeah.
So it's a landmark film, but it's, I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it at all. A couple of films on a double feature here, spaghetti western stuff, basically. Duccio Tessari, made the films A Pistol for Ringo and The Return of Ringo. And it's not kind of classic spaghetti western necessarily, but they're memorable in their own way. Tassari is not my favorite filmmaker, but I get it. There's a vibe here, that is very much its own, and you can't forego the fact that they have amazing Ennio Morricone scores. And as these films often do, and if you were a fan of the genre, this is certainly a corner of it that is not often sufficiently explored. Tons of extras, a really very good Blu-ray transfer for both, really really impressive, and that's not often the case for Italian movies of any kind. So they did really a great job here, and tons of extras where they go and they're talking to film critics and revisiting just about everything to do with these movies. Really good. And then the last one from Arrow. A personal favorite of mine, just because I was of a very impressionable age when this came out. Everyone hates clowns. I don't know anyone who likes clowns. Clowns are creepy. And you know what? Never creepier than in Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Now, Killer Klowns from Outer Space is exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about a spaceship that lands with these horrible, murderous aliens who look like clowns.
Yeah, with teeth and
that's the movie.
Doing what clowns actually do, by the way.
That's the movie.
Which is try to kill you.
Yeah. And, the guys who made this are the Chiodo brothers. They haven't really done anything else. They've worked on other movies as effects guys. Yeah. Like, I think they did some work on, they did like Critters. They did the Critters movies before this. And, they continue to do that kind of stuff. But, boy, what a great cult classic. Killer Klowns from Outer Space is stone cold hysterical. And you sometimes feel guilty for laughing at the stuff that's in it. Tons of extras here. You are not going to believe the extras. They went overboard. They went like Criterion crazy for these extras. They did. It's unbelievable. It's just, it's unbelievable. Interviews and featurettes. There's a new documentary on their childhood films from the Chiodo brothers. All of their early little movies. I mean, it's you see their whole sensibilities evolving. It's really interesting. And there's even an interview with the composer, which I thought was interesting because it is kind of a very 80s score. So tons of great stuff here. There's a wonderful special edition, Killer Klowns from Outer Space from Arrow.
Want to knock off?
Yeah, let's hit those two, and then we'll call it quits.
Call it quits. Cyborg, Jean-Claude Van Damme. That would be it. There was Bloodsport, and then I think Black Eagle. And then Cyborg. And Cyborg was the one that I decided I was a Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what, I'm down with this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a neat movie, futuristic sort of thing. There's this woman in that suit. She's like half android or whatever. And she's running the world, and they got to get to it. So this is a neat sort of beginning of something too, I think, with this movie. That the whole sort of combination of martial arts and futuristic, this and the other thing. And then Dr. Detroit. The interesting thing about Dr. Detroit is it is a movie that could not be made today. A movie about a college professor that becomes a pimp. And has a bunch of hoes. Yeah. And it's funny and it's charming. And people forget Lynn Whitfield was one of them hoes. Yeah. Fran Drescher was one of them hoes. Donna Dixon, his wife at the time, one of them hoes. Yeah. And you do, I don't know, you just TK Carter's in this movie. I mean, this movie, I love this movie, but I know in my bones you can't even pitch this movie.
No, you couldn't. It's vintage Dan Aykroyd, and I love the theme song, by the way. If you love Devo, you're going to love the theme song. It's great. That's some Shout Select. Good for them. Good on them for pulling Dr. Detroit. It's fantastic. All right, we're done for this week. Monitor the news for Netflix. They'll drop another bomb on us at any given moment. It's happening weekly. We'll see you next week.